There are 3 very important things I must tell you about the dark arts. I mean, fashion. Number 1, it's a collective hallucination. Number 2, fashion should serve you and not the other way around.
And number 3, the clothes we wear transform the world around us, for worse or for better.
Personally, I want life to feel more like a fantasy novel, to bring our collective attention to the sublime, to the wonder of this world that's right under our noses. Which is why in this video, I'm going to show you how to build your own fantasycore personal style without having to ditch the clothes currently in your closet, or go over your budget, or box yourself into one aesthetic. We're gonna talk about layering and styling, and we're gonna look at how to thrift and shop. By the end of this video, you'll have the tools you need to dress like the fantasy protagonist of your dreams. Because clothes are a special kind of magic, and science agrees with me, as I'll show you at the end of this video. A side note before we begin, I have a feminine sense of style and wardrobe. If you're looking for something a little more masculine specific, you can check out this video by Dress Me Up Scotty, who makes some amazing fantasy-esque fashion content as well. So, fantasycore is a broad term. Seriously, it covers basically everything that is made up. And that is a lot of things. Here are a few examples I've thrown together just from what's in my own wardrobe.
A brief introduction to fantasy-related aesthetics.
Fantasy academia. It's magical and whimsical. Think an enchanted library lit exclusively by candlelight. It's like academia, but with a magical twist.
Fairycore. It's light, bright, and a little chaotic, living out your childhood dreams of whimsy. Princesscore is regal and polished and feminine. It's luxurious and powerful and maybe a little preppy. Casual fantasycore are the days when you just need to be comfy. Druidcore evokes the scent of a rain-soaked forest and moonlight glistening off of mossy rocks. Hobbitcore is the cozy brand of whimsical. It's soft and lived in and smells like baked bread. Dark fantasy is gothic and dramatic with an emphasis on celestial imagery. Knightcore is strong and powerful, bold, but fun and whimsical with a bit of a medieval edge to it. And then we have piratecore, which is flamboyant and chaotic and fun. We have mermaidcore, which is playful and iridescent and whimsical. We have dragon rider, which is basically the fantasy equivalent of bikers. We have cryptidcore, which is mysterious and brooding and earthy. We have goblincore, which is eclectic and whimsical. Rangercore, which is woodsy and mysterious. Fairy tale, which is soft and romantic and whimsical. And there are countless other related aesthetics as well.
Okay, so that's just a tiny fraction. Like, there are so many fantasy aesthetics you could dive into. So with all of these options, how are you supposed to choose? How are you supposed to develop your personal style? There's no need to panic because I've got a whole process. Personally, I am kind of anti-trends. And that's only partly coming from the fact that I consider anything more than $10 spent on a single article of clothing to be splurging. Like, sure, it is fun to participate in the collective experience of a trend. But if we are all unique individuals with unique taste and unique dreams and unique hearts and souls and physical bodies, then why should we all be trying to fit ourselves into the same mold of some trend that's gone wild on TikTok? But that being said, having an established aesthetic as a starting point is very useful. And by all means, if you do really love one particular aesthetic and you just want to choose one thing and stick with it, go for it. But do it because you love it and you want to. Not because the internet made you think that in order to be cool, you had to have an aesthetic. All right, let's walk through how you can build your own personal style step by step. So to build your style today, you're going to start by defining the character or range of characters that you want to be. Think about the fantasy archetypes you're drawn to. Are you obsessed with knights and armor? Are you enchanted by the elegance of elven royalty? The coziness of a cottage witch? Do you play as a druid class in every single tabletop RPG you've ever played in your life? Ask yourself, if I were a character in a film, novel, or video game, how would my outfits express who I am? And don't just consider established, trendy aesthetics. Think of other influences as well, like historical fashion, your culture and family background, your identity, your interests, natural elements, seasons of the year, anything that inspires you. If you want to invent an entirely new aesthetic, then use those glorious creative faculties and do it. Once you've identified what lights up your personal sense of taste, write down maybe 3 to 5-ish categories of style that will become the foundation of your overarching style. Step 2, make it your own. This is where the magic starts to happen. This is where you can really get expressive and creative. So, look at your list of aesthetics. Go one step deeper and come up with a personal interpretation. What colors do you gravitate towards? Stormy grays, earthy greens, deep jewel tones? Then consider the symbols and symbolism that light up your imagination. What particular symbols within that aesthetic excite you? Like antlers, moons, fairy wings. What shapes and silhouettes are you drawn to and feel good in and actually enjoy wearing? Think of specifics like particular necklines, types of skirt, fitted sleeves versus puffed sleeves versus flared sleeves. Write down why you love that aesthetic and what part of yourself it brings to the surface. And step 3, our last step here, is to make it manifest. So this is where we take your personal style from sort of a concept to actually creating a more tangible set of guidelines. Like, you don't need to set hard and fast rules. You can make a very short, simple list of the main types of garment that you want to use for that particular aesthetic. Think of each of the following qualities: color family, pattern, fabric type and texture, design/fit, and lastly, details, like the trim, if it has any kind of like ruffle. Now it's time to go to your closet. Look at what you already have, because so much of creating the fantasycore aesthetic and developing a personal style at all is the lens through which you look at your clothes. So before you go out and do any kind of shopping, and we will talk about how to shop, we're going to talk about how to get as creative as you can with the pieces you already have on hand. Remember, limitations are great for our creativity. Not having endless options forces you to think innovatively and make interesting decisions. let's talk about styling. Layering is the secret weapon of fantasycore and the secret weapon of style generally, in my opinion, because it's all about shifting from that mindset of these are the rules, this is how I wear this article of clothing, and saying, no, I can do what I want and I can manipulate this article of clothing to create a particular effect. So this is a super simple example, but here we have this lovely bell sleeve top. It gives kind of a little bit of a whimsical feel to it, but it's pretty plain. And then you pair it with this vest, and all of a sudden it has this academic feel to it. It takes it in a vintage direction, and it completely alters this base layer. That is what the magic of layering can do. By creating those unique combinations of pieces, you are inventing something new and putting your own spin on the garment. When you're layering your pieces, consider color, consider pattern, consider detailing, consider your silhouette.
How to add a dash of fantasycore to any outfit.
A corset belt can immediately make an outfit more fantasy-esque. So that's a really good trick I find for turning any outfit a little more fantasycore. I love layering structured bodices over like puffy sleeved type tops. So this is like a corset top. I find these really communicate that fantasycore feeling. And when in doubt, a fantasy accessory can transform an outfit, whether that is a ring, a pair of sword earrings, or a leather bag. All right, it's time for the fun part. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of layering. So for the purposes of layering, I find it really useful to have a variety of sleeveless tops and vests. With shirts, you can also tie them, experiment with how you tuck them in. You can experiment with pinning them in different ways to create different effects. You can layer sheer fabrics over opaque fabrics.
There are also lots of ways to layer dresses, like over a skirt or under shirts.
You can also layer your bottoms. You can layer multiple skirts on top of each other, so wearing a shorter skirt with a longer skirt underneath. A fun way to add a little extra pop of fantasy is to use a skirt hike. But if you don't have a skirt hike, that's no problem. You can literally use a safety pin and just pin up your skirt to create a fun little extra detail and texture. You can layer skirts with pants, you can layer skirts with tights, you can layer skirts with leg warmers, thigh-high socks, with boots, with whatever, okay? There's so many options. Layer pants with interesting socks, with interesting boots or shoes to create all kinds of different effects. If you want to add a little extra detail at the waist, you can stack multiple belts. You can also use scarves or other articles of clothing to add a little bit of extra detail by just tying them around your waist. There is a great video on layering that I will have linked in the description by a lovely creator on YouTube whose name I cannot remember at the moment.
In case you're starting to feel like there are too many options, here's a simple formula you can use.
So my personal formula for building a fantasycore aesthetic outfit, whatever specific type of aesthetic you're going for, is pretty much the same. I like to start with the tops. So I will layer 2 to maybe even 4 tops depending on the outfit. Often I'll start with a simple bralette or something underneath that is lacy and maybe adds a little pop of color to peek through. Then I'll have a shirt with an interesting sleeve usually, and often an interesting neckline as well. Then a sleeveless top that kind of has that corsety feeling. I might also add some kind of vest, or I will just go for a corset belt. Next up, we need some kind of bottom.
So typically either some kind of skirt or pants or shorts.
I tend to prefer skirts over pants. I just find them more comfortable and flattering. But something in particular that I love about skirts is that you can layer them.
And then whether you're wearing a skirt or skirts or pants, you may want to add tights and or socks and shoes or boots.
The last thing to think about, of course, is our accessories. Think about how you can wear accessories in interesting ways, like stacking multiple bracelets, stacking rings, wearing like a cute little headscarf. I think accessories are really crucial. It's just a great way to kind of express the core of the aesthetic that you're going for. Like I have here butterflies and daggers, and here I have, you know, moss and some little glittery bits. And now for the part I know you've been waiting for. Let's get thrifty. So the first thing I want you to do before you go out and go shopping, before you go to the thrift store, is to sit down and decide what you're looking for. This doesn't have to be a comprehensive list, and this doesn't have to be a limitation you put on yourself, but it will help with the overwhelm and the stress if you have a clear kind of idea of what you're hunting for before you go set foot in the overstimulating, chaotic store.
Now let's make sure your trip goes smoothly with a 3-step strategy.
I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what I look for when I go thrifting for fantasy clothing. A lot of these principles will apply no matter what fantasy aesthetic you're looking for, but you'll probably want to put your own spin on them. So regardless of what pieces you're looking for, the first thing I would prioritize is color palette. Think of a few colors you might want to focus on more,
and that will help keep your pieces working cohesively. Your next focus can be texture.
Look for the fabrics that you want to incorporate in your aesthetic. For me, I'm really looking for satins, mesh, lace. I'm looking for corduroy. I'm looking for tweed. When you're looking for tops in the thrift store, you can't see everything. They're all in a giant row, and you have to pull each one out individually to see it. Thinking about like the color and the texture will really help to speed up your thrifting process. Then your next criterion is the fit and the shape of the garment. You know, if you're looking for something with a structured bodice, or if you're looking for something with interesting details, etc., etc. As you're thrifting, remember to look at each article of clothing as a possibility. So explore, both the men's and women's sections to see what you can find. Look in different sections to explore possibilities. Maybe you were looking for tops, but you find a dress instead. The more open to possibility you are, the more you'll be able to get out of the garments that you purchase.
Speaking of which, I think it's very helpful to have a lot of different kinds of garments on hand. So having, lots of different outer layers and under layers and different kinds of skirts and different kinds of pants and different accessories. The more different type of garment you have, the more possibilities and combinations are exponentially available to you.
Another thing I want to talk about is altering and modifying clothing that you purchase. So for example, I recently bought this simple, cute little top. I wanted to add a little bit more character to it. So I just super quickly, in like literally 5 minutes, added these little bows. You can also make much more comprehensive alterations. Make a long top into a cropped top just by cutting off the bottom. You can thrift flip an article of clothing into something else entirely. So yeah, explore with open eyes, really think about the fabric type, the texture, and then if you want to make alterations or modifications, go for it. Happy thrifting. All right, my friend, we are nearly at the end, but before we go, I want to take a minute to talk about why I think this is actually deeply important. Clothes are magic. And I'm not just saying that because I like pretty, shiny things. The way we dress literally changes how we feel, how we act, and possibly even how we think. That concept is called enclothed cognition, a phrase coined in a 2012 study. Enclothed cognition describes how clothing influences not just how we feel, but even how we act. Now, I do want to point out later studies have been less supportive of conclusions about the clothing impacting mental processes in particular, but there is still widespread support for the core idea that what we wear impacts how we feel and how we think about ourselves. It's all about what you believe about the clothing you're wearing. Like when you wear something that you perceive as powerful, your brain starts acting like you're powerful. Or when you wear something that makes you feel stuck, small, or powerless, you're just more likely to act that out too and make it your new reality. There is a reason that they say dress for the job you want, not just because it impacts how other people perceive you, but because it impacts how you perceive yourself. It's the identity you choose to literally put on. This last year has been a major turning point in my life where, by the abundant grace of God, I've begun to actually love myself. And I know from experience how deeply healing it is to physically embody the weird, wonderful, beautiful pieces of yourself that you have for so long tucked away in shame. The clothes that we wear are about so much more than just an aesthetic. Just by putting on a silly little outfit that makes you feel like a fairy princess, you can transform yourself and begin to heal. When you wear something wonderful and beautiful, it brings beauty and whimsy into the world, like a bright light in a dark space. So that is the magic of style. Thank you very much for being here. Let me know if you agree with my philosophy of fashion. If you disagree, I'd love to chat about it with you. And please subscribe for more whimsical, creative, fantasy lifestyle content. I'd love to hear also what aesthetics are calling to you the most, or what made up core you're embracing. I hope you have a gloriously creative rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.